Hi, everyone. So I'm going to take a little bit of a different tack in bringing us to the Old Testament and follow the ancient biblical tradition of reading the Old Testament in light of the New. And actually to bring your attention quickly back to the first page, which Thea prepared for us, just to highlight again that our approach to reading the Bible is really choosing a theological commitment to reading these texts in mind that God prefers the poor. And in fact, when we read the Gospels, Jesus goes to the poor first, pretty much. When he is invited and spends time with wealthy Jews, it's an invitation, but he proactively goes to the poor, and in light of that theological commitment, I want to take a look at the story of Hosea and Gomer, and kind of like him, my Christian background is not as deep. I grew up Buddhist, and I'm from San Diego, California, and became a Christian, started really becoming interested in what it meant to live as a Christian in college. And this, I know, that way better? Don't talk into it. It's not helpful.
No, keep talking.
Okay, I'll just keep on talking. I sometimes have a problem with projecting, so I apologize if you can't hear me in the back. Okay, so so my with that background in mind, I just kind of I take a lot of freedom anyways with reading the text, and what that mostly means is I'm kind of selfish. Like when I read these stories, I kind of read myself into these stories. And the most recent work that I was engaged with before I came to seminary was reading some of these stories in the context of survivors, specifically survivors of child sex trafficking and exploitation. And I had the privilege of reading this story in the context of one of the safe homes that the organization I worked with runs in the Philippines. So it's a small group of gorgeous young women, about 13 to 19 years old. All of them had either been rescued from a brothel or had been rescued from a situation where they were being sold or exchanged for sex. And, coming to Union, this story is very problematic because a lot of the language is actually very violent towards women. And for any of you who have read the story of Hosea, God calls this prophet Hosea to marry a prostituting woman. And he commands Hosea to do this as a symbol, as a sign of how the nation of Israel is unfaithful to God. And yet, reading this story within the context of this safe home, in the context of this small group of women, these are the verses that they latched onto. So I want to read them to you. This is from chapter 2, and the first two verses are verses 14 to 15, and then the second two are verses 19 to 20. Therefore, I am now going to allure her. I will lead her into the wilderness and speak tenderly to her. There I will give her back her vineyards, and will make the valley of Achor a door of hope. I will betroth you to me forever, betroth you in righteousness and justice, love and compassion. I will betroth you in faithfulness, and you will acknowledge the Lord. Achor in the Hebrew means trouble or suffering, and in Hebrew history, what happened in the valley of Achor really symbolized this pivotal moment of shame and humiliation for the Israelites, because they lost this battle as a result of one man's greed. God had commanded the Israelites to not take anything from this particular town, and one man named Achan, kept some of the booty for himself, and as a result, they lost the whole battle. And so it really kind of draws out all these feelings of shame and suffering, but at the hands of that person's action. Like, you're responsible for your own shame. You're responsible for your own suffering. But here in this story, what actually happens is God saying, I'm going to make that a door of hope. And so what does that mean for a door of suffering to become a door of hope? What does it mean for God to command a person, for God to command Hosea to be faithful to a woman, no matter what her actions are? And I'll tell you, for these group of young women in the Philippines, it's a word of life. It's a word of, no matter what I do, no matter what I did, I am worthy of being fought for. I am worthy of someone being faithful to me, despite anything that I've done, despite anything that's been done to me. And so I want to end with these two questions, which hopefully can spill out into our small group time in a little bit. But the word for wilderness in the Hebrew, which is midbar, actually derives from the word dabar, to speak. And so even in this passage, you have this image of, in our place of suffering and in our places of wilderness, that's actually this opportunity for intersection, for God to speak a word of hope.